Welcome to another episode of Commissioner Leaks Small Business Consortium Winner Circle. Listen, I am so excited because action has no season. We are with billionaire Michael Roberts. You're in for a treat today because I'm telling you this man is on a mission. And you see that book, Action Has No Season. And what's so exciting is that I actually have my own copy right here. And this book, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't received it yet, you need to get this book. He actually has another Action Has No Season 2.0. And so I'm here to tell you the reason why I'm so excited is because readers are leaders and leaders are readers. You can type in the chat box, where are you watching from? Because you're in the right place at the right time. And this is where we can actually learn. We can hear from an individual. How did you do it? He and his brother from St. Louis, and you're going to see, we're going to actually play a video from CNN because they were featured on CNN. And one of the things I want you to understand, we've talked about this before, success leaves footprints. And so without further ado, I'm here to say, we want to say thank you on behalf of Commissioner Velma Lee and the Small Business Consortium Committee. We say thank you. Time is our most precious commodity. And I promise you this, these next 28 minutes are going to fly by. If you have a question, if you have a comment, go ahead and type in the chat box. Maureen, we're grateful to have you here because I want you to understand, Maureen is part of our Mentor Me program, and she is phenomenal. And I want you to understand, please let your other friends, your family, you might want to do a watch party, whatever you need to do, because these next 28 minutes are going to be phenomenal. Without further ado, I want to play a video so you understand the magnitude of our special guest today, Dr. Michael Roberts. Let's play the video.
You know, they've made billions and broke barriers. Today in our special series, Black in America, Ed Lavandera introduces us to two brothers who have built an empire literally from the ground up, and they never forgot where they came from.
You know you've arrived in the business world when your office can look like this.
Yeah, this is all my stuff.
Michael and Stephen Roberts launched their business empire from a historically Black neighborhood in North St. Louis. They estimate their company, which holds everything from hotels to TV stations, to be worth almost $1 billion.
So someone watching this who says, you know, that's really easy for these guys to say. They've got millions and millions of dollars. They can go out and buy whatever they want. I have 2 quarters to rub together. What do you tell that person?
That we also had 2 quarters to rub together. We weren't rich, we weren't poor, but we just never had any money either.
We tell folks, learn it, get your hands dirty, low sweat equity, and then you will know it becomes yours.
The Roberts brothers say the key to success is putting ideas into action. They are relentless workers, always looking to make a deal.
We're creatures, we're animals of the earth. What other animal retires? I mean, if a lion retired, today, tomorrow morning becomes his brother's breakfast, right?
Mike was elected first.
They were both elected to the St. Louis Board of Aldermen. Out of a one-room office, they created an empire made up of 76 companies with 1,100 employees. They run TV stations, hotels. They own commercial real estate and telecommunications companies. Their name adorns every property: the Roberts Village, the Roberts Loft, the Roberts Mayfair Hotel. But don't try comparing them to Donald Trump.
That what may appear to you today as ego, 40 years from now will be legacy. And Black folks need legacy. We have to have examples of successes in order for us to be able to let the generations to come know that many of the successes that occurred by African Americans in this country can be seen and pointed out and can be emulated.
The Orpheum Theater in downtown St. Louis symbolizes the Roberts' quest for legacy. Decades ago, their mother and other Black people were only allowed to sit in the highest balcony. Now the Roberts brothers own the theater.
And Mom has moved from the balcony. I assume she gets a front row seat.
Absolutely.
Right? Mom can sit wherever she likes.
That is priceless.
Hey, Mom, how you doing?
Ed Lavandera, CNN, St. Louis, Missouri.
Wow. Amazing, huh? Well, without further ado, let's bring my friend, a leader in the community, in global community, all right? This is not somebody who's just, here in the U.S., but doing business throughout the world. And so let's go ahead and bring up my dear friend, Dr. Michael Roberts. Michael, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me, Marlon. I understand that you have thousands and thousands of people who follow you. I'm just one of them. So congratulations on continuing to bring such a good and delightful and informative program to the people that need it the most, our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, and really appreciate, I mean, you're a friend, you're a fraternity brother, you're a community leader, you're a mentor. And, I believe success leaves footprints. And that's why, I love your book, Action Has No Season, and we have 2.0. But I want to right now just really talk, and we got so many people that are joining in and chiming in. Alicia Brooks says, welcome, Dr. Michael Roberts. So we're just so grateful to have you. And I want to talk to you, Michael, about this. I've got a few questions, and then for our viewers, type in the chat box where you're watching from. If you have any questions, if you have any feedback, this is your time, because time is our most precious commodity. But if you want to share, this is your time. You can ask Dr. Michael Roberts any questions you have. But let me go ahead and kick it off. Dr. Roberts, we just saw the CNN special. You and your brother, as you said, you weren't poor, you weren't rich, right? But at the same time, you have created a $1 billion dynasty in different industries, 1,100 employees. I just want to ask you the first question: how did you do it?
Well, let's consider, first of all, what does it take to be an entrepreneur? And at what age did I start? I don't know. I think I may have started when my dad got the first gas lawnmower and I had to cut the grass, and my chores or my job was to cut it once a week. He gave me $5. But my neighbors on both sides of the house asked me to cut it. They thought I did a good job, and they paid $10. Well, cutting my dad's home, my family home, was a job. Cutting my neighbors was an entrepreneurship approach or a business. So the question became, would I rather have a job or would I rather have a business? Well, the money talks. And I think that created that first entrepreneurial bite that started me off. From there, of course, I think education is extremely important. Empirical knowledge is critical to any successful person. Empirical knowledge can be not just the school, your church, but your friends, but things that you learn. But what I also realized that to be successful in business, it requires instinct. It's that inner understanding that is not easy to explain, but it's something that allows you to have a sense of purpose or a sense of direction, and it guides you even when sometimes the empirical knowledge pushes you to in a different direction. So once I finished school, and even during the years in school, I did little entrepreneurial things. I used to sell dashikis to bookstores in college. I know that sounds weird, but it was back in those days. That was what was going on. I had a relationship with a friend who I had met when I was studying international. Well, actually, before I studied international law, which I did in law school. But in college, I studied mythological conventions in literature before the 17th century. So I was sort of a Renaissance scholar, read a lot of Byron and Keats and Shakespeare. But I was also a existentialist type reader. So I read a lot of Jean-Paul Sartre, Søren Kierkegaard, Martin Buber, and the like. And I somehow blended this, if you will, this concept of existentialism, meaning doing everything that you can in the moment that you exist, along with being a Renaissance man. So you feel comfortable in sports, in music, in the arts. So when you create this totality, or I did, I stirred it up in a pot, and here I am. And in my book, I actually created and coined a word, the actionaire.
Yes.
And that's one who takes their ideas, their dreams, their passion, and they pursue them with courage and confidence and bravado. You see, the actionaire is one who has learned to eliminate the fear of failure when approaching life or business.
Okay.
And so, working with my younger brother, Steve, when he finished law school a few years after I did, we had both been just elected to the St. Louis City Council, the Board of Aldermen, we call it. I was there 2 years ahead of him. He came on board, and we sort of ran the city in a way with our two votes. They called us the dynamic duo back in those days. And in learning more about politics and businesses trying to start up in our city, and at the same time beginning to represent companies, because I had developed expertise in Title VII law, which back then was, the beginning of writing affirmative action programs. I wrote some of the first ones in our history in this country. I represented several Fortune 500 companies. Now, my daddy worked at the post office for 39 years. My mama taught us. And the same week I finished law school, and that week Steve graduated from college. He went on to law school. And my mom graduated from college, all within the same 2 or 3 week period.
Wow.
So for her to have gone on and finished college shows a level of tenacity that I think must have come about in my DNA as well. But she wasn't going to let her sons outdo her. Let's put it that way.
I love it.
So I blended. I'm sorry.
Let me ask you this, because I can hear your passion. I mean, there's just a wealth of information and knowledge. And right now we've got, viewers that are listening to you. And just like the CNN reporter, he people may be thinking, oh, well, look at, where you are now, right? But you started off with very meager, your mom, your dad, I mean, they were hardworking. But I also want to just distill a nugget of wisdom that you just shared. When you were cutting the lawn, when you were mowing the lawn for your dad, that was a job. But then you got the opportunity to cut some neighbors' lawns, and that became a business. And you've had a wealth of different businesses, from dashikis, selling them in college, and so on and so forth, and then getting into the political arena and understanding how politics and business are intertwined. So let me ask you this, for our viewers, what are you doing when you talk about Actionair, right? Because fear holds a lot of people back. And what can you share with our viewers? How can they move through fear? Fear will pop up, but as an Actionair, how do they move through fear?
Well, the first thing I ask the question when I speak is, what would your life be like if you could eliminate the fear of failure? And so that's 2 words. Let's break it down. First word, fear. Fear is just a mental construct. It's not of nature. It's not the wind blowing. It's not grass growing. It's in your mind. When you were born without fear. You had to adopt it and adapted that within your life. But if it's just a construct, then why can't you just eliminate it? Because it's just a state of mind. Second word, failure. I don't believe there's such a thing as failure. And you might say, well, Michael, what do you mean by that? Let me explain. Every day when you wake up, you're given 86,400 seconds. That's 24 hours for those who studied math. Now, within those moments of existence, you are learning something. So if you have a business that doesn't make it as you would have liked, if you have a marriage or a relationship that didn't make it as you would have liked, my question becomes, is that failure, or is that just an outcome that you would have liked to have had differently, such that I did learn something from those outcomes?
Right.
And if I learned something from it, was it a failure or was it just a lesson in a sense?
Wow.
So by us taking a philosophical approach to life and in general, I think that fear and failure eliminates itself by us taking, let me say it a little differently. If you look at things differently, then things become different.
Ooh.
Let me repeat that. If you look at something differently, then that thing becomes different. So where you might see a problem or you may be facing a fear. If you look at it differently,
Right.
then there is a potential solution right around the corner. And you
Wow.
may have already saved yourself the heartache and the disappointment and the challenges. So
Wow.
in my book, as you know, I'm very philosophical.
Yes.
Maybe one day they would even call me a philosopher, because in both of my books, I try to get people to have a mindset, Marlon, because if you have the mindset of a success, one who's successful, one who believes in what you're doing, and recognizing that the worst that could come out of it is a lesson that's being learned that just takes you down the road to your next relationship, to your next business, then you can make it. Now, understand, I've owned 14 hotels, 12 full power TV stations. I've built strip shopping centers. I built a wireless phone company that I took public and sold to Sprint. I built a tower company that I took public and sold to American Tower. The Sprint deal was a little over 300 million. The tower deal was about 100 million. So those then triggered me to become an investor in places like the Bahamas, where I'm the largest African American developer in the Bahamas. Uh, as I said, I'm at my hotel in Detroit. Uh, Many of those properties that I've sold. Now, I have to pause for a moment and say this to the entrepreneurs. Don't think for a moment that everything that you do that may be successful at the time will be sustainable.
Mm.
And the reason it may not be sustainable is because there may be forces around you that could make it difficult for you, such as in 2008 when there was a recession. And when I had to go and speak with Bank of America, at the time I had $130 million worth of debt with them. We were paying off our debt, but because they were in bankruptcy and heading down the road, they said we're not renewing any of those loans, and they had taken several of my properties and blended them into one package.
Wow.
And now I had to sell those properties in order to keep my name and to pay them off at a discount, because in 2008 there was a challenge. So in my newest book, Action Has No Season 2.0, I did chapters that I thought were very important to entrepreneurs, and that is, how do you handle a downturn in the economy when you may be doing okay, but the economy is greater than your capabilities to control. So you have to learn how to pivot. For example, even in 2020, I had to close my hotel in Detroit because of COVID.
Wow.
Well, closing it doesn't mean that any debt-related considerations are going to stop. It doesn't mean that the utility bills are going to stop. No. So therefore, you have to pivot and maybe look at, in this case, how could I take some of my rooms and convert them into a program that may needed housing for some homeless folks coming out of a hospital, and they needed 3 months of assistance, non-COVID patients.
Got it.
So it created some type of cash flow. So one has to pivot. You have to also know that there are times when you sell. You know, too often in our community, people will say, it's too bad he had to sell. Or here's a good one. So companies or people file bankruptcy. Folks are saying, oh, too bad they filed bankruptcy. If I see that, I'm congratulating that person because they had the presence of mind to use government approved protections for their assets. And bankruptcies, ladies and gentlemen, were created first and foremost to help poor people. That's why they created it, for them to get a fresh start, a new start. But who uses it? American Airlines, the banks,
Wow.
the big companies all over, the General Motors.
Yep.
Do we say, oh, we're so sorry, General Motors or Bank of America, you had to file bankruptcy? Oh, too bad. No. Instead, we look at them and say, wow, isn't that brilliant? They have that capability and they have that smarts to get that done.
Yeah.
So, Paula, all I'm saying is, folks, when you're in business, expect a downturn. but look at the tools that are available to you to protect your assets and
Okay.
to allow you to have an exit if you have to exit so that you can just come back and start afresh with some new businesses. That to
Wow.
me is very key for us
Yeah.
to be able to recognize and embrace, and don't be embarrassed by something that may not be working. You may
Yeah.
need to just make that shift and pivot, yes, and move on to another opportunity.
You know what I really love what you said, Michael, is the fact of when you look at something different, it becomes different,
Yes.
right? And what I'm hearing you, and this is why, again, fear is a mental construct. Thank you so much. Because what you're really saying is the mindset of an entrepreneur, the mindset of a champion. I mean, that's really what we're talking about. It's right here. And even you just talking about bankruptcy, right? Your perspective is so different from so many other people, right? Because you have read the books, you've worked on yourself, you've learned, you've studied success. And so I want to say thank you. And already we got so many people. Look, Alicia Brooks said, no such thing as failure, just lessons learned, right? We got a friend of mine, Brian, down in Florida, who I just met last Saturday. I told him about it. He said, I need to be there, right? And look, Maureen said, so inspirational. Thank you. And I love what also John Cash said, fabulous comments and counsel. And so with that, thank you so much because, even with COVID, boy, you're talking to me. When you talked about, the fact a business, may have to close or a relationship may come to an end, there is no such thing as failure. There's only results. And if you can learn from the results, you're better. And this program that you're on right now, Winner Circle, this is a direct response to what you talked about pivoting. When COVID-19 happened, mandatory stay-at-home order, we used to meet in person. We had to adjust, and now we've done this. Now we've got people all over the world tuning in. So what a blessing it has been. But I want to quickly, because our time is already flowing. Michael, you are, I don't know, maybe a dozen and a half times I've heard you speak. And every time I'm in the room with you, I am challenged to do more. Will you be so kind to talk to our viewers about, I believe, you're really like a futurist. You're someone who studies trends and you want to get out ahead of the trend. Would you be so kind to share with us what's coming down the pipeline? And for our aspiring entrepreneurs, for our business owners, what can they do to get ahead of what's coming down the line?
Well, thank you very much. And in the limited amount of time, I'll take a deep dive into this. And by that, in my second book, Action Has No Season 2.0, I do two interesting chapters. One on cryptocurrency and the blockchain, and another one on robotics, AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. By the year 2030 between 2030 and 2035, over 50% of the jobs that our people are currently engaged in will be gone.
Wow.
Any job that is task oriented, meaning if you do something that is repeated and repeated and then repeated again, eventually robots will be able to take that responsibility away from you and your job will go. So in the future, what we'll have is I have a young grandson, and if anybody has anyone age 1 or 2, by the time that child becomes 16, they will not drive cars; they will command a car. Autonomous cars, driverless cars, will be the primary use within the next 10 to 15 years. What's that going to do is going to probably eventually eliminate Uber and some of the other Lyft and some of the other emerging vehicles. Your phone here has more data in it than NASA had when it sent a man to the moon. Now imagine as a result of nanochips that are going to be developed, that's already being developed, that can actually go into your body and begin to evaluate any type of disease or health concerns that you might have. But by the way, most people who die of one of their organs that gives way. In the future, we're going to be able to have 3D printers that'll make any organ that exists in your body to be replanted and your lifespan will be extended much further than ever anticipated. These little chips will eventually be able to be placed into your brain, and you'll have similar to an augmented reality type life, where you'll be able to close your eyes and be able to think that you're skydiving. You'll have infinite data available to you, just like you have infinite data in your cell phone. Imagine this going into your brain, and you're having this kind of knowledge. You'll be something of a cyborg in the future. You will look at the mirror, which will have these nano chips on it, and you'll say, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, what's wrong with me?" Those chips will do an analysis, and it'll begin to determine what your illness is. Those chips will then send a message to the nano robotic doc. The digital doctor will then evaluate it, and then that digital doctor will send it to digital pharmacy. That robotic pharmacist will then prepare the medicine. It will then call the local drone company that will bring your medicine to you at your home, and then of course your robot will bring you what's necessary to fix yourself. Now that may sound like something way out of the future. It's not. And what have I just done? I've eliminated doctors to some degree, certainly nurses. I've eliminated people that operate inside of pharmacies, some people, not all. The way in which transporting items back and forth to you, eventually there'll be drone taxi cabs for that matter.
Right.
That'll be able to pick you up and take you wherever you want to go. The future is incredibly technical, and yet there's a myriad of new job opportunities and businesses that will come of it. Let's take a quick history lesson. There was a time when people picked cotton by hand, and then came the cotton gin, and that began to take those task-oriented jobs away, and then they eventually found that the cotton gin handled that. From there, people moved to the north, and they were able to pick up jobs in the automobile industry. They were task-oriented. But haven't we seen now big robotic arms assembling cars in most of these plants? There's always going to be a new business opportunity as a result of emerging technologies. We have to study and prepare for them and become innovative. One of the things I'm doing now is working with Benedict College in South Carolina, and I'm working with them to create a tech center at the Roberts Building that I own in Columbia, South Carolina, for HBCU students to be able to get into a program that allows them to explore their technical interests.
Wow.
And allow those tech interests to be developed in a fashion that may make money eventually for the schools as well as for them individually. I think we have to create more of these tech centers all over the United States for African Americans to be able to go there, young people to explore minds. Let's face it, many of the inventions that exist today that's every day for us were invented by Black people.
Sure.
And those who want to take a deep dive in that, just go read up on that. Look at all of the different inventions. So there's nothing that prohibits us from being able to create the new inventions for the future. We have to look at how are we going to be involved on a daily basis with cybersecurity. Remember I talked about a chip going into your brain and being able to provide you with infinite knowledge? Now here's the dark side. Here's where I'm going to scare everybody. Because what may happen is, as you think that this is working very well for you, you may end up with a brain hacker. And that brain hacker may be able to get into your nano chip and have you doing things that you had no clue that you're doing that may not be very nice, maybe very illegal, actually. So I say to those of you who are out here listening to me that the future rests within our technology. There's going to be many jobs that will be maintained. If you are a snow skier, robots aren't going to stop you from enjoying, going down a hill, even though you may be able to envision it in your mind. These artificial reality goggles that people put on, and they see
can see themselves in a lot of places. Well, just imagine the ability to do that without the goggles.
Right.
There's going to be another big area that I think we have to look at, and it's called esports. Now, esports, we see kids now playing against each other. Believe it or not, millions of dollars are being made by 13-year-olds in competitiveness.
Right.
I think that the future of esports is going to lead us to the point where it will also be in the casinos. So there'll be esports gambling. Instead of horse racing and betting on that, they'll be betting on teams. And there are a lot of teams formulated now. I think Magic Johnson has one, and Michael Jordan may have one, and some of the rappers and boxers, they have these teams and they're actually competing. So in the future, as I see it, esports will not only be the primary future of gaming, but it may also become an Olympic sport because it's global in nature. We got to realize everything that I've described is global in nature. Cryptocurrency is a form of being able to balance out a currency value that is across the board. And using the blockchain, which is usually impervious to anybody trying to hack it. And why? Because there's thousands of computers carrying the same data on, say, your real estate or even who you are. And that data is going to have to be processed, mined, and then every municipality in the world is going to need it. I talk about the drone companies. Look, imagine every fire department having a drone specialist who can fly a drone over burning property and be able to get up high enough to see the source of the where the fires are, so they're not guessing, but they know exactly what to do and where to go to see it. Or in the police departments, what if they have drones that could infiltrate quickly to determine where the shooter is, so they can move safely to address that crime issue, whatever that crime issue may be. Those are just examples. But think everything I've just said. If you're gonna be go to drone school and teach kids how to grow up to become drone engineers, these are businesses, these are industries that are going to be global in nature. And as I've described earlier, driverless cars. I mean, imagine to be able to put your 5-year-old in a car and tell the car to go to the school and not to open the door unless a certain teacher comes to that car and opens the door.
Wow.
Imagine those in the future that can allow for this type of security to take place within their homes. So I'll stop there for the moment because I could go on and on and on, and I know we're short of time, Aaron. My apologies for taking this long.
No apologies necessary. I mean, I'm just so excited. I mean, I wanted our audience to be exposed to you. And, and already the chat box is on fire. I mean, look, this is my friend Brian who was telling you about, he and his team are developing like an internet grocery store. And so he said, I would love some advice and guidance from you regarding my company, and so I can, make the connection. Alicia Brooks said, oh my, oh my, that's all she could say, Michael. And then I love, that John Cash said, Benedict College, HBCUs. And then he even talked about, thank you for mentioning esports and gaming, Dr. Roberts. The first HBCU esports gaming program we launched at Johnson C. Smith here in Charlotte. So, you can see right now there's some synergy. And I'm grateful because I didn't know what you were doing in South Carolina with the Technology Center. I want to be involved. Okay, I'm raising my hand right now to you. I have an electrical engineering degree, worked at IBM, Hewlett Packard as a systems engineer. My thesis was on broadband ISDN in the residential environment. Okay. So, that was 30 years ago. But what I'm saying is I'm excited and I want to partner. I want to team up with you. I want to support your vision because technology, it's a game changer. And like you said, I mean, this cell phone, more technology is in this phone than what it took to put a man on the moon. Right. And so that's huge. And I wanted them to, please, here's a couple action items. Dr. Roberts, I want to say thank you first and foremost, because you, not only are you, very successful in the business arena, you're successful as a father, as a husband, as a community leader, as an activist. And I want to say thank you. You know, I actually came to the Roberts Castle, a few years ago for this big celebration, and just to see your family. You know, I was really, your daughter, your son, and the little kids, your grandkids, and see how you and your wife interact. I just want to publicly say thank you, because you're a role model. And when you have balance, and when you have, synergy, and you're committed to a legacy, that's what I really want to conclude with. You're a man on purpose when you could just be sitting back and, on your resort and so on and so forth, but you're still pushing. You're still pushing. And I want to publicly say thank you, because you're, to me, a living legend. And many people may not know of you, but I hope today everyone will go, and we're going to bring it up on the screen, Action Has No Season 2.0. And so with that being shared, I would love just to say thank you. I want to be respectful of your time as well as our viewers, but mostly your time, because time is precious. You've got all these different businesses, all these, employees all throughout the world, different industries. But I want to say thank you, because I believe today you have sparked a fire. I can at least speak for myself. And I'm so excited to learn more about your technology center, how I can play a role, how my team how I can support. Because if we don't do it, here's what I want to conclude with. If not us, then who? I just watched 2 documentaries on Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And, and then you sent me a text message, talking about the various massacres, from the South to the Midwest, even to the West Coast. And it's just, we have a responsibility. So I just want to say thank you, and we're going to bring up on the screen, but I want to just show you some of the individuals and what they're asking and sharing, Dr. Roberts, because I think it's important to know that your time today has been a blessing. And so we have Maureen Johnson. She said, thank you so much for giving us a clue about the future, Dr. Roberts. We need to make so many changes, serious changes. And then John Cash said, Dr. Roberts, we need you to speak/participate at the 2021 White House HBCU Initiative, September 2021. We also have Christy. She said, Dr. Roberts, I'm with Marlon. I would love to be involved in the technology sectors. That is my path for 25 years at companies like EDS, EMC, Dell, and Oracle. Oh, and our brother, Dr. Roberts, Emilio. Emilio, he gonna follow.
Yes, right.
Emilio said, great conversation. One of the best global business leaders, Michael V. Roberts. Good job, Marlon Smith. See, you're one of the best, but I just get a good job. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'm reading between the lines. and then when John Cash said, well said, Marlon, thank you. And Chrissy said, I made a pivot. Please reach out to me. I would love your guidance as I am on the launch of an idea into action. Okay, and Chrissy gives her email. So with that, I want to say thank you. And again, appreciate you. Please stay in the green room. Just give me 1 minute to wrap up. And I'd like to say, thank you. So please stay in the green room just for 1 minute, Michael.
Let me just make one last statement.
Oh, please.
A lot of people don't know my brother and I, and it's usually for one reason. There's a phrase I use frequently, and that is, rich people scream, but wealthy people whisper.
Mm.
So I think it's important for us not to worry about trying to be rich, but we need to be wealthy, which is sustainable. You mentioned my children. All 4 of my kids finished law school, and they're doing very well and contributing back to the community. So I always tell people, don't judge me on the hundreds of millions I may have made. You judge me on how I raise my babies.
Yes.
And that is what we have to be focusing on, the next generation. When I was in Ghana recently, where they made me a king, I was installed as a king there. I went in 2019 and I took a group of 11 businessmen. We were all renamed, and it was all part of the Return of the Royals. By that, I mean, it was in 1619, 400 years earlier, this was when the first slaves hit the shores of the Americas. So 400 years later, here we are. And the big question is, what are we doing for the next 400 years?
Mm.
When I was in the dungeons where slaves were held for months at a time, dark, filthy, dirty, virtually no food, defecating any place they can, and then going through the door of no return,
Right.
and then traveling across. And here we are doing as best as we can today. And you compare what our ancestors went through to get here. Now, follow me. It would have been very easy to have committed suicide, to drop out, and to just fall away. But it was our ancestors that chose to live.
Come on.
So that we might be able to live. And that is why we are here, because our ancestors chose to live and fight through that which they had to fight through to survive. So my little role in trying to educate our people is a part of the venture we all must engage in for the next 400 years. And we have to be careful how we present ourselves or how we are. This is a great statement. I've always been concerned when I see a brother driving a Land Rover, but he has a landlord. You know, my good friend George Fraser always talks about the fact that instead of seeing a sister walking down the street with a $5,000 Louis bag empty, it'd be a lot better if she had a plastic bag with $5,000 in that bag.
Come on.
Sometimes we have to just wake up and realize that our priorities have to be directed for legacy building.
Yes.
We have to be able to sustain what we've done and be able to move it through our children's children's children. And we have to be able to be very firm with who we are and what we're about, and not let anybody turn us around.
That's
the
right.
system isn't there necessarily to support us. Trust me, I know. And yet we've been able to forge through it as a result of being actionaires.
Yes,
So
right.
I just say to everybody, something that I think I'd like for people to start to use. You know how people say, have a nice day, have a great day. I don't even know what that means. But something that I've decided to ask people to say from now on is, have an achieving day.
Whoa.
Have an achieving day.
Wow.
And realize that if you are achieving something every day, just imagine the growth factor that's taking place within your orbit.
That's right.
So, Aaron, thank you very much for having me. I will stay in the green room as you requested.
Thank you.
But it's been wonderful. I hope people will get both of my books, Action Has No Season and Action Has No Season 2.0. And then, you know, I prefer for you to go to a Black bookstore and have it ordered there. But if you need to, you can just go on Amazon and pick them up at that point.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Michael. Really appreciate. And we just pulled up the Amazon.com. There's the book right there. He's got 2 books. But as he said, you know, we can recycle our dollar. And so please go, you know, you can Google African American bookstore and you can order it through that, right? Because that's important, being intentional with our funds. And so in closing, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. And I see already, you know, Alicia Brooks said, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Blessings to you, Dr. Michael Roberts, and your family. And I see that Christy Niles said, so moving. And Karen Morris said, powerful. Maureen said, I say. Brian said, this was a divine appointment. Thank you, Marlon and Dr. Roberts. Wisdom is the key to success. My goodness. John Jazz said, truth, right? I also say that material, purses, watches, etc. Things don't leave legacies, right? Wow, people do. Thank you. And have an achieving day. I like that. Thank you. And so listen, go get your book. I'm telling you this, readers are leaders and leaders are readers. But more importantly, actionaires are the ones that transform the world. And for those of you that get the book, what I'm going to ask that you do, send an email to leaksSBC@gmail.com. I went ahead and typed it in the chat box because I need to see if you're committed. Many of you said I want to connect with, you know, Dr. Roberts, you know, but I want to say this. Let's see if you're an actionaire. So when you have actually ordered the book, just send an email. And if you have a request of Dr. Roberts, I know his spirit, I know his heart. He'd be willing to spend some time with you, but I know many of you said, I like to talk to you, like to have a follow-up, but make an investment. Make an investment in you. That way, when you do have that opportunity to speak to Dr. Roberts, you're ready. Let's write this down. You've heard me say before, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. I'd rather go ahead and read a billionaire's book, somebody who is a community activist, a leader, so that I'm ready when I have the opportunity to interact with them. So I'm only giving you some insights because remember, 7 P's, prior proper planning prevents pitifully poor performance. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I know you have. Now let's be actionaires. Let's have an achieving day and send an email to leaksSBC@gmail.com after you've made the investment in you. This is a game changer. This is a game changer. I mean, many of us are just jaw open. I've been in live events with Dr. Roberts, and I've heard him talk about, being a futurist and what's coming down the pipeline. People just are like amazed. But that says forward thinking. So in closing, remember this, there's greatness within you. Live with purpose because your success is your choice. And in closing, remember, a vision without action is just a dream. A lot of action without a vision is merely a passing of time. But a vision with action can change the world. I am Marlon Smith, and on behalf of Commissioner Velma Leaks, Small Business Consortium, and our planning team, we say, stay blessed and have an achieving day. Stay blessed now.